Good evening, all you lovely, wonderful people, and welcome to another Photo Creative Challenge. If you're new here, Photo Creative Challenges are like a workout for your creativity. You have to shoot for the challenge, not merely choose a pick you took ages ago which might fit a brief. This is a workout for your creativity to help you become more experienced. If you're new here, please use the link in the description below if you'd like to join us. Welcome everybody, it is so good to see you all again. It always blows me away seeing you all in the chat, waiting for this to begin, having discussions and conversations about what you're doing. This is such a cool group. So let's have a look, just make sure I've got everything all sorted out and everything's working. I think it is. Give us a wave, let people get themselves settled in, those who didn't arrive earlier. Sounds a bit distorted, is it, Paul? I don't know what to say because as far as I can tell everything here is working fine. Has anybody else got a sound issue? Please just let me know. Oh, lots of you are saying you've got a sound issue. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I'm hardwired into a very, very fast connection indeed. We got lots of mixed yeses and nos. Some people say it sounds good and some people say it doesn't, so I'm not sure what to do about that. Apologies. It should all be working fine. Let me just try and move the microphone a bit. Is it better if I put it up closer like that? How does that sound? I'll try it and see. Geert, I am not going to unconnect it and try and connect it again. Worse. Okay. Let's see. Let's put this down a bit lower. I don't know what the problem is. Apologies, guys. Can we live with it? Just tell me, can we live with it? Because otherwise I don't want to have to mess about. Good, we can live with it. Brilliant. Let's rock and roll then. I think everybody is getting settled in, which is fantastic. So right, first of all I just want to, as usual, say a big thank you to everybody who makes small regular donations to support the group. We all owe you a big debt of gratitude. If you'd like to support Photo Creative too, please use the link in the description area below, or you can do what Maxine did a short while ago and buy everyone a sticker. Thank you, Maxine, that is hugely appreciated. You can do this using the little $ below the screen. I also want to give a big thank you shout out to Geert Kuster for volunteering to be a Photo Creative group moderator. That is so appreciated and so cool of you, and it's really great. You want to be so involved. So big shout out, thank you everybody to Geert. He's going to help us manage the page and respond to comments and answer questions wherever possible, because unfortunately Emmeline and I can't be there all the time. Anyway, big shout out to you, Geert. That's really great. Repeating patterns. Now, they are all around us, and to be honest, we chose this challenge because they are tricky. You not only have to notice them, but you have to think about which light will bring them to life. If it's an outdoor location, maybe you'll need to come back on a different day in different light or a different time of day. Maybe use your focal length in conjunction with composition to isolate those patterns from their surroundings. And this is something which I think we're going to be talking about a bit tonight, because it's not just about a photo that has a repeating pattern in it. It's about a photo of a repeating pattern, but it also needs to be an engaging image in its own right. But anyway, we will get there. Congratulations everybody for entering the challenge. You're all winners because you're getting off your butts out onto the playing field and giving yourselves a workout. Photography is just a little bit of knowledge which I can give you with my online courses like Masterclass or on a workshop. We've got Edinburgh coming up soon, by the way, and Lanzarote. There's still a few places, so get yourselves on those. But it's also a lot of practice, and that's what the workshops are all about, and that's what Photo Creative is here for. And we all need practice. Speaking of practice, I'm going to go and get some practice and some training from somebody else, because, you know, just because I'm doing this doesn't mean I know everything. We're all learning all the time. I'm going to go and hang out with my friend, Formula One and MotoGP photographer Gareth Harford, because I'm hopeless with pan blurs and things like that. But Gareth is an absolute master of it. Just hold your horses one moment, because I would like to show you. Just move my screens around, get ready for our main event as well. I would just like to show you just a little bit of Gareth's work, and I'm really excited to be going to hang out with Gareth and get just a little bit of practice. Oops, hang on, I'm trying to get myself sorted out. I haven't got enough things going on. Right, here we go. I mean, let's just check these out. Not only is he doing movement, but look how he's using the space in his images. Look how he's using those lines on the tarmac. Look how he's using where he is positioning himself. It's not just a picture of a motorbike. He is using all the elements available. Look at the shadow. Look how he's got down at an angle, and he's just catching these little glimpses and making a depth of field sandwich. How he's using movement inside things. You know, even here, you know, it's almost a cityscape or a landscape with a race going on in it. I just think this is great, the way he's used movement of the motorcycle and frozen that movement, but allowed everything to blur and framed the guy riding it between two marshals. I won't go on about this, but again, when you're doing whatever you're doing, whether it's repeating pattern challenge or whatever, always think about how you're going to use the space, where you're going to stand, what angle you're going to shoot from, because that's what makes it unique and interesting. I mean, look at that. He's noticed the sky's got all cloudy and stormy and moody. Right, let's use it. He spends his life travelling the world. He's just back in the UK. He also does a lot of this really cool stuff with the World Series riders, and he just photographs anything he can anyway. Right, let's get out of Gareth and let's have a look at our challenge. So, any coaching I give, it is intended to try and help everybody in the group improve on what they're doing. If I'm shouting out a picture and going, hey, I really like this, here's why, have a little listen. Think about it, because it might help you elevate where you are. If I choose a photo of yours and go, I think you could have done this a bit better by doing this, it's intended to help you and everybody in the group. Please don't take it personally, and please don't be upset if I don't manage to give everyone a shout out. So let me just make sure I have got everything over here that I need. Everything is in the right place. It is good. Let's get going. Martin Crane. Oh, by the way, we're going to finish in around about an hour, give or take a few minutes, around about an hour. Excuse me, I just need to get my chat window back in case anyone asks a question. By the way, if you have a question, ask it. I'll do my best to answer it for you. I will probably ask some questions along the way. Please don't be shy. Answer them, join in. There is no such thing as a silly question except the one which doesn't get asked, so please do what you can. Martin, you've got some great patterns here. I really do like this diamond shape combined with the curvy thing, but I'm not entirely sure that the merry-go-round works smack in the middle of it. I think it's distracting from the repeating pattern element. It may work if there was a little bit more space. Now, I don't know whether there was or not. Maybe if you could have got maybe a bit further back, had just a little tiny bit of merry-go-round and allowed the repeating patterns to speak for themselves, because this is the key here. It's not about a photograph with a repeating pattern in it. It's more about finding a repeating pattern, a shape, which is kind of an abstract in many ways, that is intriguing enough to capture someone's attention to have a look at it. But I think you're onto something here. I think maybe just a hint of merry-go-round could have worked, but it's kind of distracting us from the repeating pattern, and those are some very, very interesting patterns you've found going on there. Jojo, I'm picking these at random, by the way. I get it. There are repeating patterns in the dandelion clock, and it's a very beautifully done picture. It's a really nicely done image. But what I'm getting is dandelion clock rather than an abstract repeating pattern. I think, how could we have done that? I don't know. I'm guessing you shot with a macro lens. If you're here, Jojo, please pop something in the comments. I'm always up for hearing how you've done things. I think you've possibly done it with a macro or a close-up filter or something. Maybe it's a heavy crop, I don't know. To me, the repeating patterns are probably either in the little feathers, or possibly in the stalks, or possibly in the seeds. But what we've got here is a lovely picture of a dandelion clock, and I think that is stronger than the repeating pattern element. But nonetheless, it's a great shot, and good on you for getting out there and giving it a go. Emma Rawls, you're late. How dare you? Did it have to be abstract, says Jules? Well, repeating patterns usually are abstract. So, I mean, good example of repeating pattern. Let's have a look at this one here. Hey, Mindy. Great example of a repeating pattern. There is nothing distracting from the repeating pattern. It is repeating itself on, down and through the picture. So what do I think about this one? I think you've composed it really, really carefully, Mindy. Look at the line across this top right corner here and the one across the bottom. Now look at the gaps, top and bottom. They are exactly the same. It has been done very, very carefully. Nothing is skew-whiff or leaning at a slight angle. If you look at these verticals, they are all perfectly vertical. We haven't got something leaning in a bit or leaning out a bit or kind of skewed. It has been very carefully executed. My only comment here, Mindy, is it looks to me like it's a bit too contrasty. Now maybe you've done that on purpose because you kind of like that look. To me it looks like it's just kind of burnt out on this railing, on this shuttering. I don't quite know what's going on behind it. Now this of course is personal taste. Just because I think that, someone else may think something completely different. But it is a very, very well spotted and executed composition of a repeating pattern. Nice one, Mindy. Excuse me, I'm going to have a swig of pure vodka. It isn't vodka because I can't drink strong spirits. I'm much too much of a wuss. Now, who else? What do you got here? Diane Nicholson. I like your thinking here. I love the way that the shadows are repeating. We've got the frog repeating in its shadow, repeating in its shadow, where there are two different light sources. I think it is a really great idea. The other thing you've done very, very well is capturing the frog's expression. It's looking over its shoulder as if to sort of, you know, what are you doing? You know, go away, leave me alone. I'm having a lovely froggy time doing stuff here. It is indeed a very cute frog. Does it work as a repeating pattern? It kind of does, simply because there's nothing going on around it. There's nothing to distract us from the frog on frog on frog. My coaching for you, Diane, would be a bit careful with the exposure, because I think it looks a bit undercooked. I think to do with being a little bit brighter. I'm not sure, I could be wrong, maybe it's a Facebook thing, but to me I just think it just needs to be a bit brighter. It just looks like it's about, I don't know, two-thirds of a stop to a stop underexposed. I think it would have a lot more life if it was a bit brighter. Now maybe you were trying to keep the shadows dark. That's more of a thing to do with the contrast. Now this looks like we're talking post-production here, which we probably are. You can increase the contrast afterwards, or you can do it in your camera. Don't forget, your camera makes a RAW file and then turns it into a JPEG according to what you tell your camera to do with your RAW file. So you could go into the camera and dial up the contrast a little bit. Very difficult thing to do when you're shooting, I know, because when we look at the screen on the back, it's very different to what we see when it goes into a laptop, desktop, whatever. Glyn's asking, is it a toad? I think it's a frog. I don't know. I am not an expert. Let's move down a little further, because this picture actually caught my eye a bit. I like this, Darren, because it's a bit of me. I just think it's quite intriguing. And you have caught a lot of repeating patterns here. This isn't just like a picture which has got a repeating pattern in it. This is an image made up of multiple repeating patterns, and I think that's a very clever thing to do, to notice it, the way we got the 3 cranes, and within each crane is the repeating pattern of the structure of the crane. We got the repeating patterns of the different roofs, we got the repeating patterns of the chimney, we got repeating patterns of the scaffold going on behind, and then of course the repeating patterns of the clouds in the sky. I think that's really pretty clever, and when you consider how much you got going on in that image, it isn't uncluttered either. I think that's pretty clever. That's a good achievement. I think black and white kind of works too. I think colour may have distracted from those patterns. I think it could do with a touch more contrast. That would be my coaching. But beyond that, I think it's really pretty clever. I'm sorry I didn't take it further. What else have we got here? Oh yeah, this was an interesting one, Judith. I did read your description just to sort of try and figure out what was going on here. It sounds like an amazing bit of sculpture. Are you here, Judith? I hope you are, because I've got a question. Are those the actual colours of that sculpture, or is that something you've done to it? Because to my eye, looking at it, I love the shapes, and we've got this kind of swirl and those repeating patterns going on, one on top of the other. I like the way you've composed it with the little circle off to one side. But to me, the colours are just a little bit... almost looks like it's been fiddled with. Now, am I right, am I wrong? I do not know. If you're here, Judith, I would love to know. Give us a wave if you're here. It'd be interesting to find out. I will keep an eye on the chat as we go. I'll just keep a little beady eye on there so we don't spend too much time waiting. But that would be my coaching. I think it's a nice shot, but I'm a bit uncomfortable with that level of colour. I'm unsure that that is what was there. It feels like it's been fiddled with. Richard, you got loads of potential going on in here, sir. I think the only issue, I get that there's repeating patterns going on with the glass and the buildings and the reflections going on within that glass. My only thing is that for me it feels more like a great picture of St. Paul's rather than a repeating pattern image. I don't know if you got to have a look at Stephen Prokos's video that I did with him at the Exposure Festival, where we looked at some of his works. Excuse me. But nonetheless, I see where you're going with this. I think you could have possibly found something using the reflections. I like the way you've composed the shot. You've got everything nice and neat and even. I think there may be something else in this sort of area here. There's something going on here with this diagonal and the shapes in this glass and the reflections. Would it be possible to capture the repeating reflection between the two buildings? I don't know. Possibly. It's one of those that nearly but not quite. Also, I like the fact the light is coming towards the camera as an image in itself. I think that's pretty good. But the highlights are kind of slightly uncomfortably burnt out. I'm not anti a burnt out highlight. I'm guessing this was shot as a JPEG. If you're here, Richard, please feel free to comment. This is one of the advantages of doing your own post-production, because then you can make it look more natural, more to your eye, because your eye wouldn't have seen it like this. Or again, using the pitch control settings in the camera to get the camera to do that work for you. It is a very difficult way of going about things. As I said, hard to see the results in the LCD. Part of my masterclass, by the way, is about that very thing, picture control settings and how they affect the image and how you can set them up. But it's a very nicely composed image. Let's scoot on down a little further. Mark, you've got a lot of repeating patterns going on in here. again, it's kind of, but I think it would work better if we just stuck to possibly one theme, because the light in there is really rather lovely. Look at the light coming around these pillars, the brickwork and the textures going on. Now there may be something, you know, the repeating pattern of these frames going back with the bicycles. You've got repeating patterns of this brickwork, but again, I think it's the bricks and these pillars. The light on them is lovely. I can't help but feel that, sorry I keep turning around, but if I put the glass on my desk, I'll spill it all over my keyboard. I can't help but feel if we cropped that, let's do the old hand crop thing. Come on people, let's do this. If you just sort of crop it in on the pillars, so you've just got, we lose the bicycles and we've just got those pillars on the left. I think that is much stronger, particularly when you allow for the fact that almost in the middle of what I'm looking at the moment is that heart, the graffiti, and I think that works really well as a repeating pattern. I think it might work better just to stick to one rather than trying to get all of them. What do you think, guys? Pop something in the chat. If we just lose the bicycles and concentrate on the pillars, I think that is a really nice repeating pattern because there's some great light going on there. Come on, I know there's more than 3 of you watching. I just want you to do this stuff when you're in a room with somebody else so they all turn around and look at you. Okay, cool. And if anyone disagrees, please feel free to disagree with me. Crop the bottom and the right side, keep the pillars and the bike, says Irene Carson. So have a look. Crop the bottom and the right side. Yeah, that's a nice picture, Irene, I will agree with you. But I think in the context of repeating pattern, it's better just to stick with the pillars. Just my opinion. I like the bicycles too, Karen. Sorry. Ian Robb, I think you've got another great repeating pattern here. Forgive me, sir, but I think you spoilt it with a sunset. I know that's a very strange thing to say. However, the repeating pattern part of this image is going on in the bottom half of the frame. But an awful lot of our attention is being drawn away from the pattern by that rather bright sunset going on in the sky. Let's oh, here we go, guys. Let's do our crop thing. I'm going to use my phone. If I just close one eye and slide that down and just lose the sunset, so I'm just left with the textures and the patterns in the sand, maybe even take a little bit off either side. That I think works brilliantly as a repeating pattern, because there's this lovely light path running right down through the middle across these ripples in the sand. It's such a beautiful repeating pattern. I know it's really tempting to think, I want to put the sunset in there as well. I can get a repeating pattern and I can get a sunset and I can get a sky. Sometimes less is more. I just think it works so beautifully with just the light on those little ripples in the sand. Well spotted though, sir. Well spotted. Where else can we go? Now this one I thought, Patsy, I need to move on a bit, don't I? Can't believe how fast the time goes. I think this is really intriguing. I kept coming back to this one, Patsy, because although we are in a shopping mall somewhere or whatever it may be, although there's lots of other things, this is a repeating pattern going on somewhere, but the fact that you've got your repeating pattern so strong in the frame, it kind of works. And of course, yeah, I know, I like seeing a little human figure. I think it's well spotted. In all honesty, I did have a little play around to see how it would look if I just cropped into the repeating pattern. Let me just see if I can do this without completely messing things up. Here we go. So here is your picture, Patsy, and then I just wanted to see what it would look like if we just went in on the pattern. And to be honest, I don't think it works quite as well. It does work and it doesn't work. It's kind of not quite straight, but that doesn't matter in the bigger picture of things. What do you think, people? Tight onto the pattern or seeing a little bit of the maul? What do you think? Maul or no maul? No, keep the full photo, leave as it is. No story when it's cropped. Yeah, exactly. It's funny, isn't it? Because when I first saw it, I thought, I don't know, I feel like the pattern should be in here. But actually, this one works with all the clutter around it. I think it'd be if there was slightly less oranginess, but hey, there's nothing you can do about that. Geert saying maybe step forward a bit and ditch the bagels. You possibly have a point, but then we'll probably have something else in that second poster that is going on there. Let me just sort this out. Right, we're back to where we should be. Yeah, there may be something else going on there, but yeah, good effort, Patsy. It's carefully composed. The exposure's great, and I think this one does kind of work as a repeating pattern, even though there's other stuff going on around it. Let's just move my chat window back. Caitlin, exactly. It depends on the goal. What's the picture all about? What do you want to do with it? I do think this works well as an image. And also, of course, imagine what it would look like if there was a little kid running down the middle of that. Very small in the frame, but something like that. Or somebody coming towards you, that always helps. But yeah, it's a great use of a repeating pattern. Let's just slide down a little bit further. I'm just going to quickly touch on this one here of Jan's. Because that's a lovely picture, Jan. Too hot to spend much time outside, but found a repeating pattern inside where it's cool. You certainly did. And you have got a really lovely picture. The exposure is absolutely spot on, letting those bulb highlights burn out, because they do when you look at them with your eyes. I like the neutrality of the background and the softness that you've achieved with it. It is a really, really nice picture. I'm not quite feeling repeating patterns. What I'm feeling is sort of shapes, but it sort of works, doesn't it? I like the vertical lines with the little sort of jam jar lights. It's a lovely picture. I don't really know what else I can say. Lights are cool, says Steele Matthews, and I agree. Hello, Diane Harper. I think I know where this might be. I could be wrong, but I think it's Highcliffe Castle. Again, I think what we've got going on here, Diane, is just a little bit too much. I get your repeating patterns with the flowers, with the railings, the steps. I like the light and shade you've got going on there, and I kind of like the shapes of the stonework. I just think this one's a little bit confusing. For me, it feels more like a picture of the railing and the flowers on it, rather than just a repeating pattern. I do think that cropped in, just possibly where you've got the horizontal lines of the stairs, and then just on the edge, about where my mouse pointer is, just there, I think if we lost the flowers, we've kind of got two repeating patterns and just a little hint of one on the left. That, I think, could probably work quite well. That could work really quite well. I don't know if you're here, Diane. Love to hear your comments. Good effort. I just think there's just a few too many repeating patterns. Marcus Allen, I think this is really rather good, actually, because we have got very, very strong repeating patterns going on here, and you were in and out of my keepers folder, as several of you were. I have to choose everything that catches my eye, and then I have to keep going back and going, oh, I got to choose between these dozen or more or whatever I end up with. But I do think it's very well done. Look how carefully Marcus has composed this shot. Look at all these verticals of these cage, you know, the caging. These I guess are lobster pots or crab pots or something like that. But look how carefully it's been done. These verticals are absolutely vertical. If you approach something like this with your camera not absolutely parallel to it, it kind of goes all over the place and it can be really uncomfortable. I love the simplicity of it, the black and the orange with that sort of blue-grey background going on. I can't help but wonder if you're here, Marcus. I'd love to know. This isn't Muddyford Quay by any chance, is it? I know that's not the only place in the world which has lobster pots, but it is a well executed shot. The exposure is spot on. I like the light. You see these little shadows on the orange. It's all bringing it to life and giving it some texture. Nicely executed image. Oh, Anton. This one, you're another that I was going in and out of things with. Because I think it is a very well spotted and very nicely executed black and white image. I mean, what more can you say? What's not to like? I think your exposure is spot on because we want a bit of a silhouette-y feel to the sculpture here in the middle. It's been carefully executed. You've used the slightly wider angle lens and the parallax convergence as you look up at the sky to really great effect. And the simplicity is really, really strong. We've got this repeating pattern with that sort of sculptural shape in the middle. Well, again, what more can I say? How could it be improved? I don't think it could. I think you did absolutely the right thing to keep the ground out of the shot. I don't think there's much more you could do with it. Great image. I'm sorry I didn't take it further. I need to scroll down a little bit further so that we can look at a few more people's images. Now, of course, look at all these wonderful repeating patterns that are going on all over the place. Let me choose one that I wouldn't normally choose. Let me choose that one. Oh, it's our new moderator's picture. That's purely going on the visuals there, I promise. This, I think, is a great image, Geert. I'm probably pronouncing your name completely incorrectly, but nonetheless. For me, I feel that it's a hard one because to me, I feel the image is kind of almost, if you can do the little crop thing, it's not the graffiti. If you sort of take it off across just the bottom here and then up, it's these two shapes repeating, and I quite like the way they're framed by this arch above the top. What do you think, people? I'm just taking it off just across maybe the bottom of the shadow, just this horizontal line here, and just losing the graffiti. And to me, that suddenly becomes even, as strong as it is, don't get me wrong, but I just think it just gives it more power, and then it also fits more with the repeating pattern theme. You've got the railings. The fact that one is light and one is dark, I think is magical. Exactly, Moira, a very graphical shot, as many repeating patterns often are. I'm just reading your comments to see what's going on here. Yeah, okay. Ian likes the original. Good on you, Ian. I always like someone that, you know, if you don't agree with me, that's absolutely cool. Because this is the cool thing with photography. There isn't a right, there isn't a wrong. There is what we like. I saw one of the exposure photographers post on their Facebook the other day about, you know, a whole, you know, moral dilemma about, am I being self-indulgent just doing this, and is that better than that, or is this something else? This is one of the exposure guys, you know, exhibiting at probably the most prestigious photography festival in the world. We all have the same thoughts. This one, Linda O'Neill. I really like this one. I just think it's great. I love your colours and your shapes and your lines, and I particularly like your completely mad fish. What more can I say? You've got very simple colours too, lots of blues going on, well spotted, beautifully backlit umbrellas, completely awesome. I love it. Let's have a little look further down through our list. This one here, now I remember looking at this and thinking this was such Mladen Popovic. How you doing, buddy? I really like this one. I think this is a great repeating pattern shot. The way you've got so many little elements working together. There's I can't remember what you call it, this style of building, you know, with the timber and fill. We got the reds and the greens working together, the shutters and the windows. Very, very graphic, very much repeating patterns going on throughout this picture. I think it's been very carefully composed. I like the way, again, you've got your verticals really straight. You've gone to a bit of care with this, or you've straightened the verticals afterwards. Either way, doesn't matter. But I think it is a classic example of a repeating pattern. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Susan Firth. A very interesting little set of repeating patterns here. I love the light glinting off this rather large carp. But I think your repeating pattern is probably in the fish rather than the water. I haven't tried cropping it. You'd have to go really pretty small. Well, what could probably work is just take off the top fin and have a few fins and the water. It's a little bit sort of lost in the middle. It's kind of like a shot with a repeating pattern in it. But we're kind of missing, I think, just that fullness of the pattern. I mean, it's quite astonishing. It almost looks like it's wearing a net, doesn't it? Beautiful light going on there. I like the highlights reflecting on that wet fish. Hiya, Susan, you're here. Cropped in for this one, says Steele. Yeah, or Stella, or whatever. I wish I knew what your names were properly. I think it's a great effort. I just feel it probably is more about the fish than it is about the water. That's all, Susan. Susan says, I thought about cropping it in a bit. It was the pattern of the fish. Yeah, totally. Yeah, you know where we're going. Yeah, macro on that would be good. Whether that is, of course, doable, who knows. Fish are not great at posing. Philip Gray, I really like this. I really like this, and you're giving us a little insight into who you are and what you do here, aren't you? I really do like it. The cover design of your book, who noticed the name of the author? The cover design of your book and the way you've so carefully stacked them to make that repeating pattern. I think it's really rather cool. I kind of like it. I think it's a good idea shooting from low down to see what would happen. The but, which of course is coming, as you can guess, I think is the trees. I think the repeating pattern against pure blue may work if you could have done it in an open space. Of course we noticed this. Are you being defensive? Anyway, yeah. I love the care you've taken, and it really is this step up of that sort of magenta coloured Philip Gray bit going on up the sides. It's really quite magical. Of course it is reminiscent of a very modernistic tower block. It is indeed a cool picture. The other thing which I think could have probably worked really, really well is exactly the same structure, maybe photographed completely flat. You're usually here actually, Philip, be good to know if you are. Because I think you may have tried that and then chosen for this one, which is completely cool. Oh, another author in the group, Katie. Exciting. We're getting all sorts of interesting people. Great effort, Philip. I'll get back to what I'm doing. I do like that a lot. I think the greenery distracts a bit, and I'd love to see what it looked like going absolutely square on. Paul Andrew Mullen. As a picture, as a photograph, I love it. I totally love it. I really, really do. What can I say? Her gaze, the repeating patterns in her dress, and what's going on to the right here. Yeah, I think it's a great shot. I'm just going to move on down because I really do want to get a few more going on down here. Shirley Ann Makin. Now that is what you call a repeating pattern, I think. Oh, Port Melbourne. Really like this. I like the way you sort of treated this delicately too. It's not too contrasty. Very, very simple colours. You've obviously got great repeating patterns. But once again, I'm probably going to say, I think the sky is a distraction from your pattern. I don't know. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because the white buildings on the horizon distract a bit. But somehow, does it work if you take the sky off? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Because I do love the shot. I'm just trying to take the sky off the top and seeing if it still works. I don't think it does. I don't think it does quite so well. To me, the buildings are a distraction, but there's nothing you can do about that opposite shoreline. I think actually the sky kind of works. I don't know what you could do about the buildings. It is, you're right, definitely better with the sky. Yeah, the middle of the shot is great. Would it work if we took the right hand side off? It doesn't quite. It's that balance of the two sides, isn't it? Would it work if it was a very fractionally lower angle so that the buildings, the opposite shoreline, was just hidden behind these posts here? I don't know. These are all those things that you have to do when you're there, and I'm guessing you may well have done that, Shirley. But yeah, I do think it's an eye-catching repeating pattern image, even though there's other things going on around it. Let's scroll down a little further. Maxine Jones. You've got some great light here. Head-to-head repeating pattern. Yeah, repeating patterns in human behaviour. I think it's really rather nice. Now, of course, as me and the sort of things that I like photographs like this. I'm not fully getting repeating patterns. I'm getting a beautiful picture, really nicely executed with that backlight of people on a train. Something for me which is distracting, and I'm just doing a general image critique here, is this guy here, that bright elbow and head. So easy to miss these things because I don't know how long those people would have stayed there. Was the guy in the background moving, or was he just staying there? But I think it's a lovely image. Stunningly beautiful light, the way it's backlighting and just wrapping around their faces. You've got just the right amount of shadow detail. The whole thing just works. Is it a repeating pattern? Yeah, it is, kinda. I guess it is. It's a lovely photograph regardless. And as everyone is saying, beautiful, beautiful light. Light is king. Light is the thing which makes or breaks. George Gauci. A nice and not too expensive Spanish Rioja red wine. For my mind, that is very much a repeating pattern. Very much like, I think it was Mindy's we looked at right at the start with the railings. I like the way you've used a very shallow depth of field here and just highlight one bottle. I think this could probably work both ways, whether it is front to back sharp or just with the shallower depth field. Either way, we've got some very geometrical shapes that are repeating, moving back through your image. Black and white I think does look nice. I don't know, would colour distract from it? I couldn't choose without seeing the two together. But it is a really nice shot. The light is really rather nice. Look at these little arching shadows which are also creating another repeating pattern going back through the image caused by the bottle in front. Good effort. I like it. Kenneth Caldwell. Yep, you've certainly seen... Sorry, Kenneth, I've just read what you've written with it. Taken by your 6-year-old, Ava Marie. Give Ava Marie a big high five and a hug from me, and I reckon everybody else too. Because, yeah, did she fight? If you're here, Kenneth, I'd love to know, did she spot it? Were you kind of like collaborating here? You know what I'm going to say as a photo critique, but hey, it was taken by a 6-year-old. I think that's really, really cool. Are you here, Kenneth? If you are, I'll keep an eye on the chat. but I am going to move on from that one. But yeah, it's kind of wonky and all the rest of it, but I don't care. You got a 6-year-old working with a camera. How cool is that? Oh, hey, thank you, Ava Marie. Rock and roll, girl. Yos. This is the sort of thing which, yeah, I always kind of like, isn't it? And I do like this a lot because of the repeating patterns going on. Look, we've got repeating patterns happening in the cobblestones. We've got these really rather wonderful repeating patterns going on this building behind. I like these sort of red doors, but I really like having this little kiddie's bike ripping up the, you know, symmetry of the whole thing. It just works to me. So what would be my constructive feedback here? I think if you could do it, if it was possible, if you could have moved a little to the left and taken the bicycle with you. Maybe it's not your bike, maybe you didn't want to pick it up. But reason being, look at this balcony. It's great, but when you've got a repeating pattern, the geometry of that really needs to be handled with care. So look, we've got a bigger gap on this side than we have on this side. With same thing going on here with these red doors. They are so perfectly spaced that to me it's just a bit uncomfortable to have those going on either side. Whereas I think if you could have moved, I mean physically moved as well, because look at this gap here above the windows. You see how that one is bigger than that one? That's because we're looking at the building at a very slight angle. We're just a bit too far to the right. If you could have gone to the left a bit, maybe so you're standing directly in front of this line in the brickwork, then you're looking at it square on, done exactly the same thing with the bicycle, I think it would have absolutely punched you in the face. I really do think it's a cracking shot. Technically, I love the way you've used a shallow depth of field. We're focusing and concentrating on the bicycle. That is completely cool. The colours work. I think, for my taste, I'd like to see it a bit brighter, just a bit more exposure. It just feels a little bit undercooked. You could do with just a bit more light. Also, I'm not sure if you're here, I'd love to know, Jos, is there a bit of a grad going on the background? Because somehow the building looks to me just a little bit unnaturally dark. I get that it's possibly just got a bit of shade on it because the light is coming almost exactly from the side, but yeah, good effort. Kenneth's just saying that Ava Marie will be out for a walk or at an event. She'll tell me there's a photo she wants to take. Can she borrow my camera? That is super cool. Great effort, Jos. Let's move on. Where are we now? Yep, we're going to need to move on a little bit and then we can have a look at our finals. This, I think, was a great image here. Michele, Lorraine. I think this is a really great example of busting up the symmetry of a repeating pattern with a different repeating pattern. But there's only two things going on. And that for me is, it really kind of works. Look how you're positioned. You're right smack in the center of these arcs. This line is leading up to these repeating pattern of two sets of legs, which are kind of working in opposite directions, which to me, it just kind of works really rather well. I think it's very cleverly composed. I think it's bravely composed. How could it have worked better? Well, with working with what you've got there, I don't really think it could. I think it is absolutely spot on. If you were lucky enough to be back in this space on another day and you had the light coming towards you, maybe, so there were shadows on the ground coming towards the camera, if you had the opportunity to repeat almost exactly the same thing, I think that would work really rather lovely, just to be able to see the bottom of their legs and their shadows coming towards the camera on top of that repeating pattern. Would that be a repeating pattern image? I don't know, but I think it would be a great image. Great effort, Michele. Really well executed. You took a bit of care and a bit of time. and did a bit of work on that. Looks like Lisbon, says Moira. I've never studied the ground there. I've never been to Lisbon, forgive me. What else have we got going on in here? Because there are so many. Paul Martin. I liked this one a lot. Again, something so simple, you know, as a food grater in a kitchen. And just by passing light through it appropriately, it just works, doesn't it? All these little repeating patterns caused by the highlights and the shadows, echoing what's going on the cheese grater. I love the way, cheese grater, food grater, carrot grater, I love the way you have composed this. It's quite bravely done, you know, just cropping out a little bit and letting the shadows and highlights speak for themselves, but giving us a clue as to where they are coming from, and they're repeating beautifully. Just shows you haven't got to go anywhere particularly special, what you can create with a little bit of thought at home. Hi there, hi Glow. In Iceland, a food grater in the kitchen. I thought this was a fish container in the sea. Well, you're Icelandic, aren't you? That is funny. I think that's great. I think that's great. Dr. Aglow. Another very lovely, I think, repeating pattern going on here. And I love that burning highlight on the top. Nicely done, Mary Suvoff. I like the balconies. You again have been very careful with this because it's not easy. Look, the gaps are pretty straight. Yeah, it's a bit wider there, but whoa, we're looking up at something. All the repeating windows, the repeating balconies sticking out into the sky. And I do like, I actually rather like that highlight. However, my coaching to you would be, don't be afraid to maybe take it down a bit. I don't mind a bit of a burnt highlight, and I quite like the brightness of it. But also, don't be afraid to come down just a little bit further, possibly, with that exposure. Maybe just take the edge off it a touch. But either way, I think it's a good effort, and I like the way you've kind of used negative space with a repeating pattern. Beautifully done. Right. We are coming to the end of looking through this bit. I love so many of these. Steve's absolutely brilliant. Look at this wonderful repeating pattern of Emily's with the piano keyboards. Crystal, let's have a quick look. Crystal, because yeah. So Crystal, you're very good at this sort of thing anyway, you know, with the way you use light and all these repeating patterns in the wool. Look at the lovely shape on that ball of wool. It's the light that Crystal is using here. I don't know if you're here, Crystal, I'd love to know, is it window light? I don't know. It could be. Windows are great sources of light, but you see the shapes and textures, the slightly brighter side and letting it go dark around the other side. It makes it moody. Works brilliantly. Where else can we go? Yvonne. This, I'm pretty sure, is down at Muddyford. Have you done my masterclass? Because I think there's a couple of lessons using these very, very same beach huts, possibly looking in the other direction. Again, great repeating patterns that are going on here. The trees are almost repeating patterns too, but I think the trees kind of distract from it. This was one of the problems I've had when I've been down there taking pictures myself, particularly when I was trying to do the repeating patterns tutorial in Masterclass, which is where part of it was filmed, or a lot of it was filmed actually down there. Because the shapes, the roofs are great, the doors are great. I love the one open door. These you know, little timber steps coming up are great, and then somehow I just find the trees slightly irritating. I think with a horizontal crop, people, let's get our hands out. What do you think if it was cropped horizontally? I mean, really losing most of the trees, so it's almost like there's little more than a padlock on this first one, and letting them off into the background like a sort of panoramic. I'm losing a lot from the top and bottom, but I just, to me, looking in this little gap in my hands, I think it looks a lot stronger. What do you think? Landscape, not portrait. Maybe isolating a few beach huts would have looked good. Hey, Carrie agrees. Come on, everybody, let's throw something in there. Let's get a good old argument brewing. Anyway, let's have a look at a couple of others, and then I think Clive Barton. Beautifully composed bit of negative space. Sunny Sardinia. That sounds good. I like the way you've done this a lot. It's a brave, negative, spacey sort of a composition. 3 is a powerful number, works very, very well in photographs. And just having those 3 umbrellas, just sort of poking in. We don't need to see the whole of the umbrella to know that there's an umbrella there. I think it works kind of well. Yeah, what more can I say? The empty blue works very, very well. Just 2 colours, keeps it simple, makes it work very, very well indeed. Nicely done, Clive. Right, I think we had better jump into Moira. Look at this one. I'm just going to quickly help Moira out here. Moira, you've got a wonderful repeating pattern. The thing is, the pattern is in the middle. It's looking through. The thing which isn't quite working for me is what's going on in this area to the left, because it's distracting from the repeating patterns. Now I think I get where you're going. You're looking straight through and you've got the little window at the end. However, my coaching for you might be possibly if you move to the left just a touch, so that the window, the square at the end, was slightly to the side. It would drag that window to the side too. Then we'd probably get a little bit more of the repeating patterns down the side of the beach hut. Also, this person, these 2 sort of turquoise arms poking out at the side, they're a bit of a distraction. And it's a difficult one because also I can see the huts aren't quite straight either. A little bit of moving yourself and checking your gaps top and bottom I think could have helped, but nonetheless great shot. Is this down at Muddyford? Oh no, Southwold. I haven't been there for a long time. Is they also 300k beach huts? We got some of those not that far from where I live. So there is some great pictures. I love your bee, Heather. Did you hear that? Did you hear what I did there? Did you see what I did? Bee, Heather. Great repeating pattern going on. I think if you could have included more of the comb, I think that would have helped. Don't be afraid to let the bee be small, because bees are quite small. This looks to me like it was probably cropped a lot, just because of the way it's sort of the image is falling apart a bit. It might be a phone shot, I don't know. I've no problems with telephones, taking pictures with phones. I think they're great. But to me, I think just let the bee have a little bit more room. That would be my coaching there, Heather. Absolutely brilliant though. Some great images. I'm just going to say, as I usually do, please people, if you're not joining in with these challenges, then you need to be, because this is what will help you grow your skills. Photography isn't something you can learn intellectually just by listening to tutorials and feedbacks and watching videos and stuff. You've got to do it. You'd never become a world-class footballer just by watching football matches. Sooner or later, at some point, you're going to have to get out of the stands and get onto the pitch and actually kick a ball. It's exactly the same with photography. So let's see. What have I done? I've done something badly wrong, which isn't good, is it? Here we go. So that's got me up here into the air. I'm not giving anything away. So let's have a little look at the pictures that I kept coming back to over and over again. I completely loved this one here by Michele Sogin. Forgive me if I'm saying your name incorrectly. I think it is a great repeating pattern. And again, it's so simple. It's so easy to create this in your front room. So we've got a load of eating forks just very, very carefully lined up. I'm guessing the light could be from a window or something. It's just putting those little highlights onto the shape. Look at the repeating patterns going on in the shadows from those forks, as well as the repeating pattern on the tablecloth or the table. Very, very precisely and carefully done. Very often repeating pattern shots are more of an abstract thing, concentrating on the pattern, but they have to be done with great care, and you have absolutely done that here, I believe. What more can I say? I think that is an awesome image, Michele. I really do. So the next one, which I had in my shortlist here, which I also liked immensely, is from Darren Whiteley. Is it Whiteley or Weekly? Whiteley, forgive me. I think this is a great repeating pattern. Look at the lines that are repeating. So not only have we got the hoops that are repeating, we have got the black lines. I'm guessing this is plastic, you know, this is crops. I haven't read what you wrote next to it. High tunnels, yeah, protecting raspberries. It is. My farming background is coming out. But look how, you know, the hoops that are holding it all together are creating their own little black and white repeating patterns. Look how the larger hoops are doing it. Look at the wrinkles in the plastic sheeting. But also look at where Darren has stood in order to get those kind of going away from you repeating patterns too. It is a mass of repeating patterns. My pleasure, Darren. I think it is a great shot. Congratulations, beautifully executed. Right, I got to do an apology here. This is the first night I have ever done this, but accidentally I chose to talk about your picture, Linda. And I knew you, and I don't know, I clicked on it now, I can't give the game away. But anyway, I've already spoken about this, but there you go. I think it is a great set of repeating patterns. You've got all the patterns within the umbrellas, you've got the patterns of the shapes of the umbrellas. We've got gorgeous light just coming through them. The whole frame is full of umbrellas, apart from the fish. And I just think that is just a little piece of magic, because of all those pastel-y blues and greens and greys that are going on there, as well as the dark blues. It has an underwater feeling going on to it, and therefore, to me at least, that fish just lives there. I think it's completely awesome. I really do. Great shot. Great shot. My next image, which I need to talk about, I also have to give you an apology, Paul Andrew Mullen. Because I did it to you as well. I started talking about your picture when we hadn't got to this stage of the evening. Never done that before. I've been so careful. Hey ho, getting complacent maybe. I do think it is a cracking picture, but there are so many repeating patterns, but they are so perfectly aligned it works. Now I know I've already pulled a few pictures up and gone, yeah, this is a picture with some repeating patterns in it. But I feel in this case there is such a strong geometry, even with the human face going on in there. I just think it is a really strong picture. I'm just going to make it larger on my other screen and look at it, because look how your daughter is sitting perfectly in front of that tree. The repeating patterns in the bark of the tree, the fact that her dress is repeating the pattern of the timber to the right. Then we've got those gaps sort of going on, you know, the uprights of the timber behind her, behind the tree. And somehow her gaze, the way she is looking into that sort of space, is somehow helping us travel along those repeating patterns, those lines that are moving to the right. I think it is another very accomplished and beautifully done image. Sorry, Wendy. But yeah, there we go. I've never done that before, but hey, first time for everything. Another which I particularly liked, obviously, because we're about to talk about it, is a very natural repeating pattern from Alan Baxter. Although it's random, there is such precise geometry of this nature. The other thing to me, which is really making this repeating pattern work, is the simplicity, and there is some very, very beautiful light going on. New growth on these brackens, I think, is quite magical, because it starts, it's much brighter towards the tips, and as you come back towards the stem it darkens. Part of it, I think, is that, but also you've got some quite nice light just sort of glancing across it, very, very delicate light, and to me it just works. I think you've composed the shot beautifully. It's one of those things, it's quite difficult. You've allowed everything to kind of, it's a bit haywire, but almost everything is running at a bit of a diagonal. I think this is a really great example of some very natural repeating patterns, and I particularly like top left corner, the way that one fern is coming into that dark place, sorry, bracken, and it's pointing into the shot. Cracking image, cracking image. So the next one is, of course, my pick of the month, the one I kept coming back to and thinking, there's something about this which just keeps drawing me back. There's been some beautiful photography. If you haven't had a shout out this evening, my apologies, I can't do everyone. And there I am saying, come on, more of you get involved, because you need to. That's what these challenges are for. Take on board some of the feedback, what you see, what other photographers in the group are saying as well, because look, you're some really great guys, you know what you're doing. And get on the pitch, start kicking the ball, take some pictures. But the one which I kept coming back to in this challenge was from Donald Todd. This one was my pick of the month because it is so rare to see a repeating pattern in human beings, and I just thought it was cracking. It's such a strange thing for people to be doing. The other thing, of course, is, Donald, you have been very careful in how you have photographed this, because look at the horizontal lines of the Royal Guards. They're absolutely spot on. Remember, we were talking about that great shot with the kiddie's bicycle in the building. If Donald had been slightly to one side or the other, those lines wouldn't be running perfectly horizontally across the image. The fact that, you know, yeah, it's the military, it's the Royal Guards, and they're, you know, really super like that. I just think it's a great set of repeating patterns. What more can I say? There's things which might have worked, you know, with different light, and I could bang on about that, but it isn't, and the Royal Guards don't do things for you, they just kick you out the way. Great job that they do, and my young cousin Ben used to be one. Awesome bunch of guys. My coaching, Donald, just one little thing, and I don't usually do this when I've already chosen something as the pick of the month, but it's not a but actually, this isn't a criticism, it's a question. Get your fingers, do our little crop, just the first row of guards down the bottom. What do you think if you just took it off above their hats, above their bearskins? These are bearskins, not busbies. Just take it off just above there. What do you think, guys? Wow, I even got, oh, Glenn's approved of something. No. Careful, Glenn. What do you think if you just take that off and you've just got the ranks behind? It's just something about that wider gap. It's just me. I think exactly, Emma, I totally agree. It works both ways. Beverly says no, not sure what you mean, says Sue. Good, leave it alone. It's just a question. Congratulations. I think it's a cracking shot. Now, before we go, just before we go, let me sort this out. One moment. Just, no, that wasn't meant to happen. That was meant to happen. Just before we go, I just wanted to say, before we say farewell, there was a fabulous conversation going on in the group, and actually it's behind the next challenge because I thought it was a great idea. Now, If you're new here, you haven't been here before, please visit the link in the description area below. Sign up to our Photo Creative email, because then you're never going to miss a challenge and you'll know what's going on. So there's something coming out of the archives, and I think those of you involved in that conversation can kind of guess what's coming. But anyway, you'll find out in about 10 or 15 minutes when I stick the next challenge live. But you guys rock. You are completely awesome. You also may remember, I put a post about this today, when we first started the PLD group, this began, photography lockdown, something to stop people going nuts while they were locked in their own homes, unable to go anywhere. We did that challenge with the homeless charity Alabare. We combined with we made their exhibition challenge into our photo challenge, and many of you wonderful people from back then supported the charity and entered their competition. You put money into their pockets to help homeless people, some of you quite generously entering many images. The exhibition of the winners had to be cancelled because of the pandemic, and that is going to be happening this weekend. I know that those of you who have won, you walked off with the points. Let's face it, how cool is that? PLDers, now Photo Creatives, walked off with the points. Oof. I hopefully will meet one or two of you. I think Gary, our overall winner, who beat me, you beat me, Gary. I think he is coming all the way from Manchester. But anyway, I'm going to be there. There is a post on the Facebook page. Anyone who wants to come along, you are more than welcome. It's on the Facebook page, in the group, the address and all that stuff. So hopefully I will meet one or two of you on Saturday. Beyond that, as I've said, you guys completely rock. It's a privilege to be here with you all. Take care of yourselves until next time, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Be well.